how technical do you have to be to become an AI product manager?
Getting out of like an average BCom college, being able to really understand all that, I think you do have to be fairly technical in sense that you don't have to worry too much about the implementation. As a product manager, मैं तुम्हें पूछूं अगर करता क्या है, तुम्हें सोचना पड़ेगा. Shit, when your engineer comes up to you and says, "Dude, this was super clear and very helpful," one of the biggest wins I would say. I think startups are the best place. In startups, dude, like it's deploy करो, पूछ लो customer से भाई कैसे लग रहा है. Is what's the feedback?
That's a really good hack for product. I use it daily. I use it daily. Yeah.
I should kind of try that.
What should a good portfolio look like?
A problem statement.
In today's episode, we are joined by Velour Abhishek, Senior Product Manager of AI at Rattle, where he's building AI-powered automation tools for sales teams, which are used by some of the fastest growing companies of the world. But what's interesting about him is his journey to product management. He started off with just a BCom degree, not engineering, BCom, and then moved from HR to FinTech to B2B before finally landing an AI product role, all without a technical background. And you can too, because in this podcast, he breaks down how side projects and portfolios helped him land a job within 20 minutes, what it takes to gain trust from engineers as a non-technical PM, how much technical skills are actually required in AI product management, and of course, how to break into AI product management in 2025. So whether you're from a non-technical background, a fresher, a college student, or just someone trying to break into AI, this video is for you. So watch this video till the end. So hey Abhishek, thank you so much for joining. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Nilian, thank you so much. Glad you reached out and happy to help.
Awesome. So yeah, so an interesting thing about your profile which I saw is that you're from a BCom plus MBA graduate, which essentially means that you are from a non-technical background.
Yeah.
But when we talk about like AI product management, which people perceive and see as fairly technical, like you are one of those rare people in that scenario. So it will be super inspiring if you could tell the people about your journey, like what got you into AI and product management, and maybe talk a bit about that.
Yeah, I think before I go into that, I'll just say there's hope for everyone. So I think every journey is different, and obviously it's not very deterministic on, okay, you follow step 1, step 2, step 3, but it's variables that we have control on. And I think to answer your question, give you a quick background, right? So I did my BCom. It's not a huge fan of the entire BCom situation as well because it was super synthetic in sense that it's just accounts, which is like Superman.
Right.
It felt fake.
Right.
It's like the random people came up with it. Hey, let's create a subject where you're just adding stuff. And it was not intellectually stimulating for me. And that was a quick takeaway. And I was like, I wanted to do like a standard path is like you do commerce, you do chartered accountancy.
Right.
Day one, I knew, okay, this is not it. Uh, this was not intellectually stimulating, and I can't sit on the same spreadsheet throughout my life. I need, as a human itself, I want new problems to solve or something that's very intellectually stimulating. And my dad was into HR, so Darwin Box had pitched it to them. They were like super young then. They were seed or like Series A then, and my dad said, and I got it off. I passed out in 2018. And I didn't sit through campus placements. I did sit through Deloitte, but I didn't get through, thankfully. I don't know how my life outcomes would have changed if I had done that. But
Yep.
thankfully, I didn't get through. And then I was figuring out what do I do and things like that. And then my dad said, hey, these folks seemed very energetic and super smart folks. They're trying to build some HRMS, which I did not know an H about as well. So I I had an interview with them. I did an unpaid internship with them for like 6 months. One thing that was very clear when I started off, obviously it does come from a little point of privilege, but I didn't like chase money or anything. I wanted to get a maximum learning. So I started off as a RevOps, sales, business analyst for sales effectively. I set their CRM and things like that. But during that, I was also doing a lot of the setup or setting up their sales process using the tools that they had. And also, I was doing a lot of product benchmarking. Simultaneously, HRMS is a super competitive space, and we had to constantly kind of update our roadmap, understand what the market's doing, and things like that. So I used to do that very often. So I was parallelly working with product as well. I was giving them inputs on, hey, this is what these guys are building. This is how we kind of stand up against. And the head of product, Chaitanya, co-founder, he's like, I think you're a very good fit for product. And then he said, I think you should work with us in product and help us more with these things. And that's where it started. I converted it into a full-time role. I worked there for like about
Hmm.
18 months. Started off as a very basic product analyst, then moved into like a APM-ish sort of a role. I kind of then at the fag end of it, before I went for my MBA, I worked on an entire new expense module for Darwinbox.
Nice.
That's where it gave me a lot of feature ownership, understanding a lot of these things. So I think Darwinbox was very crucial. I
Huh.
think that's that kind of set a strong foundation for me to think from a systems perspective, which I had zero clue about. But I always had an inclination for tech. I'm a huge Gizmo guy. I
Hmm.
naturally am able to understand a lot of these tech stuff. Whenever I look at any tech or gizmo, I really go deep into it. Really try to understand. I'm a huge NKBHD fan. If when
Hmm.
even though I couldn't afford any of those phones, I would watch them diligently day in day out. So I built like a muscle, would say, right, for that, and then got into MBA. I wanted to explore a lot of these things. That time it was during COVID. I did my MBA, sadly, but I was on campus, thankfully. So I thought supply chain would be very interesting because there was a lot of things around supply chain during COVID,
Right.
because there was ऑक्सीजन
Logistics
कम
and all that.
है ना? तो काफ़ी मतलब इंटरेस्टिंग लगा, and I somehow got an internship for at an FMCG company in their
Hmm.
supply chain. Day two, and I was like, no, man, this is this again. It was something. It's very monotonous in sense that obviously it might work out well for others, but for me it was problem solving. Right, I needed
Right.
a new problem every day if possible. Right, I really wanted to learn new things. So what I had done, though, and in MBA everybody has like a project that you get at your internship, but
Hmm.
I had picked up 10 other parallel projects for them, right, by myself. I said, hey, I will build out these things for you. There, they did not have a way to kind of track their logistical performance. They were doing a lot of manual operations in terms of reporting and things like that. For example, and I said, I'll solve it for you. So I think again, that was me going to my product mind, saying, how do I again solve this pain point? I know they're spending too much time, too much bandwidth. They can use that something more productive,
Right.
right? Things that are regular, right? Things that are very structured should be automated. And that's where I got into like a whole product mindset where I built out these dashboards, learned like all languages, the language possible. I don't remember what it was, but they were taking like 2 day or 1 day or 1.5 day to build out these reports. I was able to do it under like 5 minutes for them because it's very
Damn.
structured.
Yeah.
It was just that it just had multiple sources where they're just like transforming the data and just doing
Right.
all of that, but they're doing repeat. I was like, how are you guys doing this day in, day out? So and I was like, I'll solve it for you. And then I had built out like an entire logistics performance tracking. They had no way to track their logistics and things like that as well. So I did that as well. So then I came to a realization that, okay, supply chain, nah, right? I was very clear in terms of functions as well. Marketing is something, it's creative, but again, it's not very problem centric.
Right.
No offense to the marketers, but it's not like I'm solving them. It's a lot of iteration, and product does have that, but it's more about how do you get the other one to sell it. But I
Right.
wanted to be I want to build something. I think building was a very innate part of me. And finance was something that was not. So it was more of a process of elimination. I started with product, I started with sales. I said, okay, sales, I knew I was quite terrible at it in sense that if I go to an auto guy and I can't negotiate effectively, so I'll end up paying him 10 rupees more. I'm like, I don't want the headache, man, just take me. So I knew sales was not for me. I knew supply chain because I played around with it.
Hmm.
Then marketing also is not there. And again, I was always coming back to my product thing. And then I think in my final year, I was like super dialed in. I was like, okay, I'm not going to do anything apart from product. I'm ready to take a huge pay cut if needed.
Hmm.
But because getting into product is super difficult
Yep.
once you're not in it,
Yep.
right? So I wanted to leverage the advantage of the product analyst or the product work I'd done at Darwinbox and
Hmm.
try getting. But again, being like a non-engineer was super hard. So I had built out this entire portfolio during because in the last semester a little chill. So I built out like a huge landing page for a problem that I wanted to solve on PhonePe. And then when I in the interview as well, right? And I got like a super last minute interview.
Oh.
This at OfBusiness. I got to know
Mm.
like 20 minutes before, and I was like, for a company that prepared a day in advance, I couldn't clear what will I do with. I gave up, but I told them, hey, I'm like super interested about building products, and I'd done this landing page and things like that. And I think that caught their attention. And they just asked me to kind of share my screen and run them through it. And it was 10 minutes, one interview done, another 10 minutes with the CTO
Wow.
done. Yeah. So from a prospect of not having a job anytime soon, in the next 20 minutes, everything changed. Um, so that's and again at Off Business, I built out their entire consumer app. We wanted to solve the problem of information asymmetry that's exists in the market. Built
Huh.
out an entire product, me and my co-founder there. So that was crazy, man. I was working around I think 17 hours every day for like 4 months straight. But it was for me again building and solving new things was so interesting. I was just completely dialed in.
Yep.
I think I learned so much and building things from scratch that includes product operations, products, what's the framework and things like that. Then I was super convinced that product management is something I want to do, right?
Mm.
Because apart from this, I feel engineering is the other alternative where you can do the same things, right?
Right.
But
Building this.
yeah, building things, having a new problem to solve every time, right? To
Right.
being able to have first principle thinking. Um, the close second that came to me was product management, right? So that's how I got into product. And then I interviewed with Rattle, and then they did not have someone who's taking care of specifically of the AI initiatives.
Huh.
And for me, it was a whole new world. And
Yeah.
I was already like, I did have some background with AI, like you were trying to do or solve some product operation stuff using AI, but I was not too involved in it.
Right.
Um, and joining Rattle, I was a little overwhelmed in the sense that, okay, I understand, I know product building. I can work with engineers on that because that's some language I've learned, right?
Mm.
But I was like, there's a new challenge for me is to how do I talk AI and to engineers? Because effectively that's what we do, right? As product managers, you should be able to speak everyone's language
Right.
and to be able to translate that into others' language as well,
Yep.
right? So it could be, let's say, for business, you need to understand business and speak business. You can't say, hey, this is not possible because, our database doesn't have this structure.
Right. Yep.
That's pointless, right?
Y-
So
Yep.
with the designers, you need to be able to speak design. With engineers, you need to be able to speak tech. And I think the biggest role of us is to get all of these stakeholders to trust you. And if all of them trust you, because they don't trust each other, it's the harsh
True.
truth. So you are basically there to bridge that gap in terms of trust and say, hey, we're building something that's going to be a consolidated outcome of all of our efforts, right? And with AI, I was like, okay, I have no clue what to do, and this is like super. I don't really understand it. How do I then get my engineers to trust me, right? There was an AI pod. Obviously, the first 2 weeks, I'm like, whoa, what's on? What's rag, man? What's this? I'm a person who's like very driven with challenges. Like, if you tell me, okay, do this or you can't do this, or like, it's like self inflicted effectively.
Right.
But throughout my life, I had goals. I think that's how what helped me as well. It was just like cat exam. मेरे को
Hmm.
निकलना है. I was not the smartest, I was not the brightest, but I know I had just like done hard work that I can put in my
Right.
control, and I did that. So again, MBA में product placement चाहिए. I put my heart and soul to it. ठीक है, हो गया था. अभी ये नया चैलेंज आ गया था कि अच्छा, I need to understand a lot of these things, right?
Yep.
And that's when I got in completely into AI and crazy world, man. Every day it changes, and the possibility that the AI is going to definitely get better. How that world would look like, dystopian. But that's a topic for another thing. But yeah, that's how I got into product management from like my background. Super obviously fortunate to kind of be able to do what I like. So I
Right.
think that's a good problem to have, in sense that I have a lot of these challenges, but I feel that's a good problem. I think fundamentally what can be a takeaway on this is that you just need to find people who can take a bet on you
Yep.
effectively, at least in the start of your career, right? So
Right.
I think I was fortunate enough that a lot of people did take that bet on me, and I turned out okay, hopefully.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that like Darwin Box experience really helped you a lot in shaping
Yeah,
up the entire product thing. And your VP of product or head of product who had that faith in you that
yeah,
okay, this guy can do product stuff. I think that is super important.
yeah.
I'd like to go a bit deeper into, because that is what a lot of aspiring people PMs also ask, is that how do people judge whether someone has that spark in them? What is that spark that people maybe need to develop? What did you show to that VP of product or head of product?
If I also had to look at someone, I think one thing that drives, or one thing that's a very core skill of a PM, is to be super dynamic. Because I do not know what you're going to do tomorrow, but I know there's some problem that you had no clue about is going to come tomorrow. And
Yep.
how are you going to cope about it? And it's not coping, right? You need to really go through into it deeply. You need to understand what that problem is. You need to understand different persona. You need to understand different. Today it could be like a sales problem. Tomorrow it could be a finance problem, right? So I think just that key skill of someone who's dynamic enough, and also curiosity.
Hmm.
I think that's a very underrated skill. But
Yep.
even if you're not very if I know, okay, this X person has just done this, but is very curious about these things, right? And curious about just not this product, but has a curious nature,
Yep.
and someone who has grit, probably. I think because you definitely need
Hmm.
a lot of perseverance, because it's not very easy to
Right.
keep context switching. I'm sure you can relate
You
amount. I think I'm going to
you
lose my mind soon.
you mentioned those 14 hours, 16 hours for 4 months stretch. And like, okay, it's been happening almost every day. So what
Yeah,
is
but
this life?
I've accepted it as status quo, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, because to build great things, and it's not that someone's telling me to do it.
Hmm.
It's that I am
Exactly.
very passionate about it. Obviously, there are timelines that drive that, but
Yep.
yeah, once like you give me a problem, and I really want to solve it.
Yeah.
End to end. So I think that's one thing. Be curious, be dynamic, in sense that try to have an
Right.
understanding of everything. You don't really have to go too deep, but have like a wide spectrum of knowledge. If anyone
Yeah.
speaks to you about, oh, about topic X, they're going to speak about topic Y the next moment. You should be able to have that capacity to have some understanding, so that you can have conversations with them as well. So I think that's that I would say is like a good enough framework to kind of figure out, or for the aspiring ones at least, right?
Awesome. Yep. And I think off business was also like fairly big at that moment, and it was fairly big, right? At that 2022,
Yeah,
23.
yeah. Yeah, so they were the main HQ was around 2000, plus there were a lot of
Um,
mergers that happened. So I think a total headcount of 5 to 7,000 people across
wow.
factories and things like that. Yeah.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
yeah, I wanted to know more about like, so you gained these 2 years of very core product experience where you like grinded it out like for the next 2 years, right? And then you moved to a very nascent AI sales tech role where you knew nothing about AI. So how was that transition like, and how did you learn about AI? What were the things that you did to like? Why, first of all, why did you apply, and how did you? Let's talk about why did you apply? Why did you want to switch, and then
Hmm.
talk about AI.
Right. So I think to give some context, OfBusiness as a company is a very commerce driven company.
Hmm.
Right. And we were like a small bunch of team trying to techify the whole B2B raw materials, right? Like they're dealing with steel, they deal with chemical and things. Very matlab SMEs, hardcore Indian SMEs. That
Yeah.
was our persona,
Right.
right? And I wanted to kind of see how I had done a lot of these things, but I think I was in Delhi as well, so I think that also played like a huge role. I wanted to be closer to home. I'm from Hyderabad, so
Hmm.
that was one factor as well. But I also wanted to get my hand around core tech companies, core product companies,
Uh,
right? And that's what was my experience at Downbox, and I wanted to get back into it,
um,
right? So for me, those learnings were good enough, but now I wanted to learn or get into like core product companies. So, and I think there's no better place to do that right now, at least, than Bangalore. Right.
yep.
And I thought when people told me it was, I was like, क्या उतना क्या फ़र्क होगा
ठीक है,
मतलब
हो जाएगा।
हाँ, मतलब
क्या
इतना क्या
है?
बैंगलोर बैंगलोर बट मैन as soon as I entered Bangalore, anywhere you go, just that ecosystem is so strong
Yep, yep.
that you know even when you go out for lunch or dinner, there's the table, other people they're talking about, dude, how do I optimize these data? It's I'm like, dude, this is my heaven, man. Everybody is just like trying to solve problems. A very bunch of driven set of folks, very tech driven folks, right? So I think that environment definitely was there. So that's why I had actually made that switch. And Rattle as well was, I loved their product, their vision, their entire branding was very interesting. I was
Yeah,
super impressed by their website.
yep,
So I
yep.
was like, dude, these guys seem like a bunch of cool folks, and they're very similar investors and very marquee investors,
Hmm.
as they were for Townbox as well. So I thought
Yep.
there's definitely something in here as well. So that's how I why I made the switch, right? So for me, as soon as like I'm comfortable, right, I do not like it because there should be like
Hmm.
new learnings, new things that to build. And for me,
Yep.
I was like, thoda I was getting very comfortable with it because the product was built already. Now it was more
Right.
like feature edition and things like that.
Fine-tuning
Uh,
small things and getting the growth, yeah.
या ये बटन डालना है यहाँ पे थोड़ा फिल्टर विल्टर ना ये I'm like अभी यार ठीक है अभी ज़्यादा मज़ा नहीं आ रहा है तो I
Yep.
was like maybe it's time to also look out yeah so that's how I made the switch. I think that was the first question, right?
Yeah, and like if I had to talk about like you went into this new company, which is like you went from a 7,000 plus company to a 50, 100, 150 max or 200 max, I feel. So
Yeah,
how
we are
did that
right now.
culture shock?
Oh, I think so we Rattle right now is close to like 50, 60 people.
Oh,
um
wow.
yeah yeah yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, and on the office list, though, we were like a team of 20, 30 people, but the company's quite large. So, but we were like our business as well, like they operate as a startup. Irrespective of scale, they're super driven, very, very execution focused, right? So for me, it didn't really feel like a very large org, sense that, and given that the other some people were also in like factories and things like that. I was not really in touch, but they did have like process and things like that. But we operated as like a startup in the company itself. So for me, in terms of speed, implementation, all that was, and I was used to it, right? Downbox
Yeah.
again. My because my base point itself was a very not a very easy journey as well. I
Hmm.
started working when I was 19, effectively
Yeah.
for them to
Yep.
kind of trust me to do all of those things that I was able to do at Downbox. There were days there, okay, when the investor would ask, okay, I need this by tomorrow. I was also helping out with a lot of these investor pitch decks and product
Right.
analytics decks. That gave me like so much input on what the VCs want to see on a, and getting out of like an average BCom college, being able to really understand all that, I think is a super privileged position to be in. So I was always used to that grind, and I wouldn't trade it for anything else because I think that will kind of exponentially create a difference between someone who's actually built things
Yep.
versus for me like big organizations. I don't really see a lot of merit for myself right now, right? Because I don't want to do like a small part of a big or like what's the saying, small cog in a big
Small
machine.
company. Yep. So when I
Yes.
when I switched from Amazon to like in a startup in HSR, I felt it.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, what is happening? Why is there so much noise? Why is
प्रोडक्शन में
everybody
डिप्लॉय क्यों कर रहे हैं डायरेक्टली?
why is everybody shouting?
Yeah.
That was the thing. With a small floor, everybody's working. Like we were probably a 20, 30 member team. We are currently 70, 80 right now.
Yeah.
But back then it was like crazy. Full culture shock in HSR, small one floor. It's
Yeah.
really cool. I love
Uh,
that. I love that vibe.
yeah, man. And I was used to it. So for me,
Hmm.
again, because it's a close knit of people working towards the same cause. Matlab,
Right.
it's a lot more fun building things.
You feel
It's
that. You feel that. Yes.
yeah, and as a product manager, there's nothing more gratifying to see your stuff going out and getting feedback immediately,
Hmm.
right? And I think that's like the things that keeps us going, and you might agree to that as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
और
Yep.
अगर मतलब वही इफ आई हैड टू डू दैट इन अ लार्जर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एक दो महीना लग जाएगा एक बटन ऐड करने में।
Yeah.
अभी तुम ट्रैक करोगे वो प्रोडक्ट एनालिटिक्स में अच्छा ये हमारा मेट्रिक हाँ ये ट्रैक हो रहा है। in startups, dude, like it's deploy करो, पूछ लो customer से भाई कैसे लग रहा है, मतलब is
I
what's the feedback?
I worked there for a year. I don't think the feature that I worked on, or the product that I worked on, was ever live. It went live after I left the
That's
company.
crazy. Yeah.
It was that slow, man.
So for me as a shock to nahi tha, because I was
Hmm.
again very used to that same
Hmm.
environment. But I did see a little shift on people in Bangalore versus Gurgaon. I think that's just
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
people are much mellowed, I feel here.
Yep.
But yeah, Gurgaon it's little aggressiveness that's there,
Right.
which
So did
yeah,
you feel that in the product culture or the like company culture, or as in just the people
thought
around you?
this is the company culture as well. I think
Okay.
yeah. So, but whatever, it just works hard. Super bunch of nice people at Rattle, very
Hmm.
smart people, and I love working with them. I'll get to learn a lot of these things. A lot
Right.
to learn from each one of them, and very strategically driven.
Yep.
And I'm very glad that I joined the company because it kind of helped me again go into like a very product mindset. कि user को क्या चाहिए. Sometimes
Hmm.
यही हो जाता है, अच्छा ये बना लेते हैं, because no matter what, like you start drifting into that, right? So we keep at Rattle as well. What is the problem that we're trying to solve? Because as a product manager or like product itself, sometimes you do get into the solution orientation. तो वो
हाँ.
भी प्रॉब्लम बोल रहा है, यू स्टार्ट फिगरिंग और अच्छा मैं ये कैसे सॉल्व कर सकता हूँ,
Right.
है ना?
Right. It automatically gets going.
वो बात कर रहा होगा, बट तुम सिर में सोच रहे हो अच्छा इसको सॉल्व, बट लाइक अगेन
Right.
व्हाट इज द प्रॉब्लम दैट वी आर ट्राइंग टू सॉल्व, right?
Right.
I think getting in, and we're currently in that very deep product zone as well. So it's been super
Hmm.
fun, very intellectually stimulating. I think very happy where I am right now. Yeah.
This sounds like one of those HR videos.
If my HRs are listening, see, yeah, I'm a nice employee.
Exactly. There we go. Wow, this is like HR vid.
They didn't.
I'll send them a clip.
Yeah, you should.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Also, so yeah, you landed in Rattle and you haven't like worked in AI at all. Like, how did you like? What was the first hit of AI that you felt, and like what was the first feature, or how did you get up to speed with all the AI things that was happening inside the company or in the industry? Because you
Mhm.
yourself said right that there's so many things happening. Like last
Yeah.
week, deep research. Last to last week, deep seek. Then week
O3
back,
आ गया.
O3 ChatGPT with tasks. These things just got rolling.
Yeah.
So how do you keep up to date and what did you do?
Yeah, I think to answer your first part, right? Like, how was it for me and what's like the first hit? I think there's
Hmm.
1 week in, obviously now I had my modules. I was given a lot of AI modules. पता भी
Right.
नहीं था AI का AI क्या है, but दे दिया. But and coming to that point again, very dynamic, right? I think you have to be ready with whatever task, and
Yep.
super grateful for manager then to kind of trust me with this again. Need people to bet on you. So yeah, and I sat with my team and I had our first customer call. काफ़ी ऐसा,
Wow.
so we had like this feature called meeting intelligence where
Hmm.
a very straightforward feature where you have your call and we send a summary in a structured
Fireflies. Fireflies, granola, those
granular
things,
types,
right?
right? But
Yeah.
very sales specific
Yep.
to things where it actually matters. For
Yep.
example, Zoom करता है, Zoom but transcript मेरे को भेजता है. What we do, and that's the whole point of Rattle as well, but I'm not like pitching Rattle right now. But we we send it to like a channel, Slack channel, where people are working on a specific deal, right?
Hmm.
So they said, hey, the output's not great, and it's very kind of not. The formatting is here and there. It doesn't really capture the essence of the call sometimes. So it's not very helpful. And that was like a super hit to me. And this was my first customer call, and I was alone, by the way. So
Oh.
my manager couldn't make it to that call. I was just getting like hammered
Hmm.
by these feedbacks, and I was like, cool. And again, as I said, now I was challenged. Ki it's almost like you're questioning कि इतना खराब क्यों है, I felt. मैं बोला अब देख. मैं भाई, I think then I think as I think anyone in AI or AI product manager, you might agree to
Yeah.
one thing as well, is that there are basically few things in our control. One is the prompt, one is the
Yeah.
data that you provide, and मॉडल पे ज़्यादा कंट्रोल नहीं है, मतलब बिकॉज़ दीज़ फंडामेंटल मॉडल्स तुम स्विच कर सकते हो, बट you are given what you are given, right? And the major thing is basically what the input data is given, how
Yep.
is it given,
Yep.
and the prompt. So I think my first foray into AI thing was prompt engineering.
Yep.
So I wanted to understand what the hell are LLMs. I तो went ground zero. मतलब इसके बाद I
Yeah.
went to like actual ground zero. But
Yeah.
I went to first let me understand how the shit works.
Hmm.
So I think Andre Kanaparthi का एक वो
Yep.
very
Yeah.
popular video
Yep.
intro to
Intro to
LLMs, right?
LLMs. Yeah.
So that was there like an hour video, and I
Hmm.
was able to kind of I think I watched that video thrice almost to kind of really get context on what I'm actually playing with. And then I said, okay, so then I understood these things that ठीक है prompt के साथ काफी कुछ effect हो सकता है, right? In
Right.
terms of the output quality, because in this input though very straightforward, it was just what the call was happening. We were not playing
Right.
with too many complex things, and that's when I really went deep into prompt engineering. Right, I read so
Uh,
many resources, watched so many videos, and then got into like hammering multiple iterations. And with prompt engineering, the main thing is you need to be really patient, uh,
uh,
because you know there is something that works out better,
yeah.
and
You just have to
I
figure it out.
yeah, and it
Right.
was a lot of manual thing because now I manually had to consume the whole call word
Hmm.
by word and be able to see what again, this is a product again coming in, right? Product manager skills that as a sales manager, what would I want to know if my A attend this call? Or if the teams that are working on this call, what would I want to know? So I had this set benchmark in my head that hey, these are the things that I would want. Now I was just like iterating and prompt engineering to kind of get as close to that output. And I was able to get like, I think improvement 100%, 200% almost in terms of positive
Uh,
feedback. So there's rarely any negative feedback that comes in for our meeting intelligence output as well.
wow.
So everything at for any prompt engineering right now in my company, it's just me. So that's one
Yeah.
trust factor that I've built with my team, right? So they
Hmm.
just trust me. So the engineers build everything and they say, "Acha, prompt Abhishek kar lega." Matlab, he'll give me the
Hmm.
prompt. So again, you
Right.
see, right? Like you're trying to get people to trust you, and you're trying to get to a place where they're giving some things to you and know that okay, this part can be taken care by
Yep.
Abhishek. So I think prompt engineering was my first foray into it. And then I was like, okay, like what actually is an LLM? I understand this. So then I
Hmm.
actually read through uh, the attention wala paper.
2017 Transformers paper, right?
Yeah, the transform paper. And dude, I realized as I okay, ये काफी बड़ा पेपर है तो मैंने बस notebook LLM में डाल दिया,
Yeah.
podcast सुन लिया, and then I just started like barging questions on notebook LLM. And I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, like this is crazy. And as I
That's a really
mentioned,
good hack. That's a really good hack for product. Use it daily. I
yeah,
use Notebook daily.
yeah, मतलब डाल दो पहले get like a super high level understanding and then now
Yep.
you'll have questions in it. So now
Right.
just like hammer on that and try to understand that. So I think again that curiosity kind of comes in picture.
Hmm.
Just the drive to kind of really know what you want to do. For me, it started out with prompt engineering and things like that. So I think that was my first foray. But obviously, I've learned that product management is just not prompt engineering. But that was like my first part into that. Yes.
Super cool. So, like from your discussion so far, like I understood that for you, I think a great product manager, or as at least what propelled you to become a good product manager, is firstly the drive to like just do anything that is possible. Then like always loving to building products, love to build products. And
Yeah.
then third thing would be like insane curiosity. Like ये कैसे नहीं हो सकता है? मैं
हाँ.
बनाएगा इसको
यार अगर वो नहीं है तेरा और इंजीनियर का क्या डिफरेंस है? इंजीनियर को तू बोलेगा नहीं, फर्स्ट थिंग विल लाइक नो, नॉट पॉसिबल. देन यू हैव
Right.
टू गो ब्रो, like you can do this because again that's when you speak tech, right?
Yeah.
Because in general engineers are in sense, and that's for their job, they really need to
Hmm.
understand their existing systems so well that
Right.
sometimes it limits them in a sense. And
Hmm.
that's where, again, you should be able to gain trust over the engineers. You should be able to speak their language and tell the art of possible effectively,
Got
right?
it.
So, yeah.
If we talk a bit about tech, like you mentioned software engineers, like working with software engineers, like given your background with like non-tech, like how was that? Like how do you deal with technical folks like on a day-on-day basis, like stakeholder management, all of that?
But yeah, I think I've just learned to speak their language. Again, coming
Fine.
back to very started, again, I'll go back to my first job, right? I was just shadowing a lot of these meetings with my product managers. I was there in these discussions. They would throw a word here and there. Then you'd be like, "Acha, ye kya hai?" Then you go through it, and then you read, you understand it. Now, then you can start throwing that word to them, right?
Right.
You slowly start picking up a lot of these things, and in the span of the last again, building a product from scratch has taught me a lot again, right? उसके पहले मेरे को events भी क्या है पता नहीं था, right?
Understandable.
So
क्या
हाँ
है
तो
मिक्स पैनल? क्या है
मैं
मिक्स पैनल?
हाँ मतलब ये कहाँ क्यों कर then everything starts making sense, like,
Yep.
and just being able to sit in a conversation, they might throw a lot of these words. Again, that curiosity comes in, saying, you ask them, be very shameless about it. Saying, hey, I really don't understand this. What does this mean? Right? Because engineers do have that tendency to become very technical,
Hmm.
right? And then we'll be like, okay, I don't really understand this. And I think over time, it's kind of uh, multiplied, right? Now I'm very comfortable speaking
तो
the
engineers.
tech to the engineers, right? But I don't really have to say, okay, ये database में तुम्हारा JSON schema ऐसा वो जरूरत
हाँ.
नहीं है मतलब that's their
Yeah.
job,
Yep.
and it's good. You should not really again you should find a very good midway
Hmm.
between being too intrusive versus not being too intrusive at all, where
Right.
you should be able to communicate things that you because you know what the things that would come up in the future, and you should be very well able to communicate the framework or the things that you can, so that's a little future proof,
Hmm.
right? So I think that's how it kind of helped me, like, and I'm super comfortable right now. Again, gaining trust is very important, and I'm sure when I joined Rattle, they're like, okay, ye kaun hai? But I have really grown into that, like where they trust me. Like for example, showing prompt engineering, acha ye kar sakta hai, to he understands this, right? Then again, learning a lot more things, and when you actually write a spec, right, and when you're able to communicate a very good high level structure, right?
Hmm.
I think that's when you know you're able to speak the engineer's language very well. You know, यहाँ से input आएगा, ये processing ये करना होगा, ये API call मारना होगा, return करके इसको और थोड़ा process करना होगा, right? I think what helps me is to think from personifying like the data itself. If a user asks X, right, how does he get that answer for that X? And I thought you kind of imagine you yourself are the data itself. How would you kind of go through the entire system that's there and come out with the output, right? I think
Yeah.
that helps. Yeah.
I think
So,
you also must have faced this like when you were reading maybe let's say your first API documentation to figure out
hmm,
for a PID, okay, what
yeah,
APIs do I need here?
yeah.
That must have been quite an experience, like especially the first one. Then it must have
Agreed.
become very easy. Right.
Agreed. Yeah. And now though it's like my engineers are also super happy because अभी मैं डाल भी देता हूँ कौन सा API क्या
Right.
ये they're like very happy. It's almost like you help them not read the entire
Doc.
documentation.
Yep.
And those are like small wins, man, as a product manager. When your engineer comes up to you and says, hey, like, dude, this was super clear and very helpful.
Yep.
Engineers से compliments आना is like one of the biggest wins, I would
Absolutely.
say.
Yeah. Well, half the day you fight with them,
Yeah.
but when they compliment you, it does make sense a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's how I think I got in. Was I've obviously it's never ending, right?
Hmm.
But yeah,
Got it.
that's up.
And like if I have to ask you like how technical do you have to be to become an AI product manager? Like from your answer, people might think that okay, is AI product manager just like prompt engineering kar do and it's done.
Hmm.
So how technical does a person have to be, and how do you keep up with all the technical and AI learnings that happens on a day-on-day basis?
You do have to be fairly technical in sense that you don't have to worry too much about the implementation, but you really
Hmm.
need to know the components that go into it.
Hmm.
If you have to build, because you as a AI product manager, your job is to figure out what use cases get unlocked with the help of AI for that customer that you're serving. To understand or to know the art of possible, you really need to know back engineer the whole thing in sense that if I have to get this specific output that might help a customer, how does that whole thing look like, right? So I think you have to be fairly technical in the sense that you need to understand what AI architecture kind of looks like, right? What's RAG? What's a vector DB? it obviously helps me more curious on how actually embeddings translate into chunks that are further, right?
Hmm.
What is,
Yep.
you don't have to know the math behind it, but we should know conceptually know, अच्छा, why does this actually matter?
Yep.
मतलब ये नंबर्स में स्टोर करके हमें आंसर्स कैसे दे पा रहा है, मतलब दैट शुड बी
Right.
योर क्यूरियोसिटी सेइंग अच्छा हो कैसे रहा है, राइट? एंड आई
Yep.
थिंक to again answer, it has to be fairly technical, but not worry about the implementation too much,
Hmm.
right? But you need to know what goes into building an AI system, right? And uh, again, internet is the greatest boon. It's all about your intention to learn effectively. Information is there, but तुम कितना curious हो सकते हो, right? So that I think should solve for it. Uh, and that's how fairly technical you should be, because if your engineer says, hey, this is not possible, you should be kind of fair. It might not be possible, but we should
Hmm.
be able to have a conversation around it, right? You need to be fairly technical in sense that, okay, if he's saying, अच्छा, ये नहीं हो सकता है, you need to be able to understand actually क्यों नहीं हो सकता है and what is the other way around it, right? So,
Right.
and you'll be surprised sometimes that there are other ways around it and your knowledge actually helps,
Right.
right? So, yeah, I think that's, and how do I keep up with it? Again, internet, every day is something that breaks the internet. So it just helps to go through it. What I want to do personally this year was that I do have a blog. It's called Things I'm Curious About. And the
I'll
idea was that,
I'll pin it. I'll pin it down.
matlab, I'm not very active. I should be. But the idea is that whatever I'm curious about, I every week I write like a blog.
Wow.
It can be the lamest things. For example, one of the point was that, okay, how are cyclones named?
Oh.
क्योंकि एक बार एक कोई साइक्लोन था which caused like massive destruction और तितली, and like इतना सुंदर सा नाम
Oh
तो
yeah, that 7 countries each one by one name them, right? Something like
yeah,
that.
and yeah, exactly. So I was like, कि कैसे होता है? तो again, it was very, the idea was to like just put in my, the
Right.
other thing was, how does Shazam work, right?
Hmm.
How is it able to kind of capture uh, yeah, and identify uh, music in real time
Right.
as well. So just like these things, I wanted noted down. And yeah, this year's target was that every week I'm going to write like a thing on what I learned this week, specific
Hmm.
to AI, and make it much easier because I understand. But I think this day and age, everybody should know about it, man. Otherwise, if you're
Yeah.
not, it's a scary situation to be in.
But
Because
any specific resources that you mentioned? So you mentioned Andre Karpathy's videos. You mentioned that you use ChatGPT a lot. But is it always very instantaneous, or do you have any structured way around it?
I want to. I mean, I would have liked to, but I do have these topics, right? For example, something that
Hmm.
I covered. Again, what could be helpful for my work as well. There's this problem that was there that, hey, how do we do this? Then I researched about it. I came across something called
Hmm.
GraphRag,
Yeah.
right? Then, acha, this seemed very interesting, right? And this might solve our use case and things like that. Then I really started trying to understand what it is, go through videos and multiple things. That's how I come.
Yeah.
It's more on the job, more
Right.
of a
Yeah.
thing, right? But
Same.
also every day something or the other keeps breaking the internet,
Yeah.
right? So I want to. Ideally, it would have been nice that I do that every week on week, which I will. I think from next week I should. But yeah,
Yeah.
I
Bit
think
bit too bit too late for the New Year's resolution, but we can.
you just have to start, man. Like,
Yeah.
let's not. I think not wait
Yeah.
for New Year's again. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's how
Well,
I keep up with it.
I the one thing I do a lot is I got this from my CEO as well, is that I saw him follow a lot of these AI leaders and AI like PM
Right.
leaders as well as in Twitter, not LinkedIn. LinkedIn
Yeah,
is full of
Twitter.
shit. Twitter,
Yes.
and so there are these huge threads and AI people talk about a lot. And when you follow these leaders, what happens is they all retweet other same people's work and all.
Yeah.
So you get to see all of these
Uh,
immediately when you open Twitter.
my CEO forwards me a lot of Twitter threads. The problem is I'm not on Twitter, and I'm
Oh.
trying to reduce a lot of doom scrolling and things like that. So
Hmm.
because of attention's being taken a lot by Instagram and all these things. So I'm trying to consume less of these social media, but I
Huh.
think that's a great way, honestly.
Huh.
I've seen like gold coming out of the algorithm, but yeah, other thing is just that keep updated, keep like reading about things that you come across, and
Right.
then go into chat GPT and have a chat about it. I think that's,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
I think the entire search bit which they have come out with, it's insane. The way
Yeah.
it's so insanely it can just research everything that we want to research about. You're
Yeah.
building a
Yeah.
product, you want to figure out, okay, how do I do this?
Yeah.
How is the competitor doing this? Let's
Mm.
go through their documentation and read
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same. I think that plus notebook LLM is great.
Hmm. Love it.
Just put in a paper, and if you want to understand what DeepSeek did differently,
Hmm.
and how do they do it very cost effectively, put in that paper, understand it. Like,
One way I use notebook is like I put the API documentation directly.
oh,
I put my PRD directly. Okay, what do I need?
oh, that's I,
Yeah.
I should kind of try that. I
Mm.
haven't tried that hack yet.
My friend does this. So Perplexity is great at citations, right, and doing
Mm.
those links. So what
Yeah.
he does is searches the first bit in Perplexity, then he gets those links, puts them in Notebook, then
Yeah.
asks Notebook to summarize everything, and gets a
Oh,
bigger picture, and then just bang on questions on top of that.
very
That's also
interesting.
yeah.
So that's a good hack. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hack alert. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I wanted, so you recently switched to this like startup, and I want to know more about like what does the PM job hunt look like, let's say in end of 2024, start of 2025, especially in AI. Like what did you prepare for? How did the interview rounds look like? How should, like, let's say an aspiring PM, a fresh graduate, engineering, BCom, non-technical, technical, whatever, what do they need to do to get their first PM job?
So that's a interesting question. Yeah. No, I'm just talking about how probably PM thing works, and
Hmm.
AI PM right now is very like
Nascent.
growing nascent in us. Like there is no set skills, but
Hmm.
you can always. I think there's scope for AI in every company. It's
Yeah.
about you taking initiative and then calling yourself an AI PM later.
Yeah.
But I think first thing that would be to break into product. I think what I would do is that take a list of, let's say, these early stage startups and Series A startups,
Hmm.
right? See what interests me, right?
Hmm.
And I'm sure you agree as well, right? Intern की जरूरत तो है,
Hmm. Yeah.
right?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. So I'm saying, like, if you're really interested, curious about their product, reach out to them, make a list of these startups, right? They would be much more open. And in terms,
Hmm.
if learning is a very important part of what you want to do in your life, I think startups are the best place. It might
Good.
not be structured because you're just thrown into the ocean and asked to swim,
Hmm.
right? But it your learnings will be multitudes of what your peers would be,
Hmm.
right? So I think what I would do if I were like an aspiring PM is that I would go through a list of these Series A early stage startups, understand their products, see what I'm interested in, the area that I'm interested in, right? And as a PM, you probably don't have a lot to show for, right?
Hmm.
Building a portfolio helped me. I mean, I think
Yeah.
it can be a very good hygiene factor, right? If
Yeah.
someone is actually interested and going, because effectively you'll be running them through your portfolio, which you've actually put your mind through. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know how people are doing with ChatGPT and everything, but during my time, I actually put
Yeah.
my head into it properly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I knew I had answers to everything possible. And
Hmm.
I think it's a good way to kind of maximize that as well with ChatGPT. Obviously, it helps you reduce your workload, but mm, be cognitive about what's there on your portfolio. And
And what should a good portfolio look like? What should it contain?
I think a problem statement, let's say, hey, Spotify is my favorite product, right? Because that's a very standard early questions.
Hmm.
Hey, what's your favorite product? If you were a PM, what would you do about it?
Right.
If you can pick up like 2, 3 products that you really like, build out a landing page communicating that solution itself. But
Hmm.
I went to lens that I made a walkthrough video of my solution
Wow.
as well. I did some
Hmm.
editing on Canva. It was very bad, but it's I added music to it, transitions, and
Damn.
I yeah, मतलब slideshow था effectively, but with
Yeah.
थोड़ा fancy. Because
Yeah.
I suck at, but I made all of these mocks and everything. I really went to a certain length to kind of ensure I show them.
Efforts.
Yeah, efforts दिखना चाहिए. It should not
Yeah.
be like everyone's doing that same thing. You need to really
Yeah.
stand out. And I think
Yep.
that's what helped me as well. Yeah. Build a
Got it.
portfolio, have something to talk about effectively, right? Try doing these internships as much as possible because um, if you have time, I'm sure a lot of these companies would have internship opportunities. If it helps them, they actually convert a full time role. So that in itself helps. It always
Right.
helps to get an early start. मतलब फोर्थ ईयर में और करोगे क्या, मतलब हो गया 3 साल मजे कर लिया तुमने.
Right.
Maybe use that time, and I feel now with AI you can build these products, man. Like it doesn't end at product portfolios. You can actually build it out.
Build a product. Yep.
Yeah,
Using
and
cursor and everything, you can just do
हाँ
anything.
यार मतलब अगर मैं होता तो probably मैं मॉक ही बना देता, like a working prototype, right?
Yep.
So
Well
that
said.
could be a plus. And then because I seen couple of folks who just post their videos on what they've built or links on their
Hmm.
product and ask for internships.
No. Yep.
So
And LinkedIn
again,
and all places, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's so many ways. You just have to shoot your shot effectively. And again, hope that someone takes a bet on you, right?
Hmm.
But again, the other route is you have these established APM programs.
Hmm.
If you're from a good uni, etc., maybe the pathway is much better. Like the Flipkart APM program. I think Google also started their APM program.
Yep. This year.
But again, I'm a little biased towards startups. So,
Hmm. But do you
the
feel like startups, like what I have seen personally in startups, I've talked to people, but they feel like a startup is usually like product decisions are made by the founders, right?
Hmm.
The core product decisions are usually made by the founders, and you in a very early stage startup, people often like don't tell people to join. They would rather join a Series B, C companies where it's a little bit established and there is some product culture there. What's your take on that?
if you're getting into product management, right, first job is actually execution.
Yeah.
मतलब
Right.
तुम्हें execution सीखना है पहले. उसके बाद the big picture, strategic,
Hmm.
all of that things can fall on. But as a product manager in your initial phase, and I myself, I'm like somewhere in between now. I have
Hmm.
slowly transitioned, or I'm trying to transition towards a larger picture, right? That
Hmm.
obviously is there, but like I'm talking about real big picture things. That takes time, and
Yep.
that takes a lot of iterations, knowing your customer well. And founders are founders for a reason, since that they do have a context on the business, right? For me, sales was something like completely new. So obviously, I trust my founders to kind of have that hindsight as well, right? So I think as a initial product manager, you don't really have to worry about that too much. Get into it, start building, pushing out things, then
Hmm.
you slowly build that memory or the muscle to kind
Hmm.
of now, okay, then you can go like, hey, boss, I don't think this is the best way because the problem that we're trying to solve is X, but with this, I don't really see this
Hmm.
X being solved. And I'm telling you, they'll be more than happy to be wrong
Right.
because they also are like super, sometimes they also get into solution driven modes,
Hmm.
right? So it's your job to ensure that we're still trying to do what is the problem we're trying to
What are the
solve.
customers facing? Interest. Very
Yeah, yeah,
correct. Yep.
yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, I think we are almost at the final stretch. I have one last question, which is like a hot take on product management, which is, what do you think is the future of product management with AI coming? So now you've been like 7 months, 6 months. You must have seen what AI has been doing. So what's
Hmm.
your take on this entire product man? And should people be actually worried getting into product management, given that it's non-technical or you are not actually building anything? Engineers are building, designers are designing, sales people are selling. What are you doing there?
Yeah, yeah. The existential question हो गया. But
Yeah.
I think to answer your first question, I'll probably answer that at the end.
Yeah.
To answer your latter, be that you are something that is driving things at the end of the day, and you might not be appreciated the most, but you are speaking to business, you are speaking to tech, you are speaking to design. Now you're getting all of these efforts, right? You're basically the what's driving the product effectively, because all of these functions are very limited by that specific function. But the advantage that you have is that you were able to think out of the box. That you're able to think business, you're able to think a product, you're able to think design, right? You're able to think tech. Agar if you ask a business, they'll very acha mujhe ye I need to sell this, right? But and they're limited by that. Design again, they're limited by, let's say, अरे यार ये component या
Hmm.
ये design system में नहीं है या this
Hmm.
interaction is missing. They're limited by that, right? And tech also is just limited by what is already built and how do we build on top of that,
Yep.
right? You are speaking to the customers, you are speaking to business, you're speaking to design, you're speaking to tech. Your perspective about things is much broader, and your job is to communicate this broader perspectives to all of these functions
Hmm.
and finally ensure the customer is happy, right? So I know people, मतलब people think that अच्छा कुछ करता नहीं है पूरा दिन कुछ तो करता है, दिन खत्म हो जाएगा, करता है क्या है? But I think if you have a good team, they actually appreciate, right?
Yeah.
I think you can see number of specs that you've written, number of features that you thought about have shipped, the feedback that comes in. And when the
Hmm.
feedback comes in and super positive or even positive, right? Directionally positive, I'm saying,
It helped a lot.
it's
Yep.
it's such a boost to you and the team who's built it, right?
Yep.
Matlab, then you're like, acha, let's nail the other problem, man. It
Hmm.
if it's not working, then you're not doing something right, right? Like
Absolutely.
so So you are doing a lot of things. It's just that
Hmm.
because they're doing so many things, maybe sometimes they lose the lens that karta kya hai. But as a product manager, we do a lot of these things. Sometimes we also just drown into so many things. We realize टू तो बढ़ रहा है बट कुछ कट नहीं रहा है मतलब दिन के एंड पे because you enter the day saying okay two things at the end of the day you have 15 things and my founder keeps telling me you really have to learn how to say no, so that's something I have to work
Hmm.
on.
Yep.
That's something I
Absolutely.
can't. Yeah, I'm
But
learning to say no. It's a
it's
very
usually the
important.
founders who get that 2 to 15 also.
Yeah, yeah. So I have to tell my founder कि नहीं है fine अभी.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the latter part is yes. I think by the end of this year or the next half, we'll be able to get a very realistic picture where we stand in terms of AGI, the Stargate project, then a lot of models coming out of China. So many things that are happening. It's obviously very scary, but one, it always helps to be with a wave, right?
Hmm.
And I would say the I'm sure companies are going to get people are going to get replaced by AI, right?
Hmm.
But right now, or for the like a near future as well, things that are very structured. The roles that are very structured. I know day in day out, I'm going to do this one, two, three things. Day
Hmm.
in day out. Those are the first things that are going to going to get
Disrupted.
replaced.
Hmm.
बट अगर प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर मैं तुम्हें पूछूं अगर तू करता क्या है तुम्हें सोचना पड़ेगा शिट अगर तुम्हें खुद कभी समटाइम यू हैव नो ट्रैक ऑफ व्हाट ऑल यू डू
You tell me which day, I'll then think what I did that day, maybe.
exactly right and I'm not saying AI might not get there but
Yeah.
I think as product managers someone who's into let's say very dynamic role right? They do like 15 things and there's no
Hmm.
specific set structure. I
Yep.
think we are a little safer compared to people who do a lot of repetitive tasks in their yes.
Yep. I think the stakeholder management, the talking to various teams, getting them aligned, getting your C-suite aligned, getting your investors aligned, everybody aligned
बीच
on
में
the same.
मस्का मार के काम करवाना बहुत सारी चीजें होता है यार. So
And
yeah, so I
yeah,
think we're okay, but I think uh be with the wave is what I would say. Uh, I feel that with this current shift, a lot of legacy things might get replaced by AI native things, and sooner or later you need to be in that wave, otherwise you're outdated in a sense. Yeah,
awesome. Awesome, man.
awesome.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. It was a
I
great podcast talking to you, man. Hope the
I
people
hope
love this.
I hope
Yeah.
so. Cool. Thanks for having me.